Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Welcome, listeners, to the Parenting 411 podcast. Joining us today is the accomplished and inspiring Erica Simone Turnipseed. A Brooklyn native, Erica wears many hats. She is a dedicated teacher, a fervent social justice activist, a skilled novelist, an insightful essayist, and I will also say a wonderful mom. With a background steeped in the profound study of anthropology, holding both MA and BA degrees from prestigious institutions, Yale and Columbia, she infuses her work with depth and understanding about the human experience, society, and vital issues that shape our world. We're here to discuss her latest work, a children's book entitled Bigger Than Me. In this timely piece, young readers Luna and Zion are navigating through heavy, daunting words like homelessness and pandemic. Erica's narrative invites not just children, but all of us to transform these heavy terms into words of hope and kindness, creating a dialogue of understanding and empathy, as well as empowerment. So join us as we uncover the inspiration behind Bigger Than Me, explore how to approach challenging discussions with children, and delve into the power of words with our esteemed guest. So please welcome Erica Simone Turnipseed.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am thrilled that you are here, and we're going to start off talking about your wonderful book, Bigger Than Me. So why don't you show us a picture? It's a beautiful book. Show us the book. And then I just would love for you to talk to us about what the inspiration for the book was and the message that you intended to communicate to young readers through Luna and Zion's story.
Sure, Carol. So Bigger Than Me really started with me trying to respond to all the things that were happening in our collective experience in 2020, in particular, the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, part of the pandemic, or sort of coming out of it, there was the racial reckoning that our country experienced, and there was the loss of Congressman John Lewis. Mm-hmm. So all of those things impacted me and impacted my family in such a way that I really started to think about trying to share what we learned and what we were doing with other families. In particular, my son, who was then in elementary school, mm-hmm. had just done a big project on Congressman Lewis. And then, of course, he passed away, probably within about 2 months of him doing that project. He was very moved, as we all were. And we took, when I say we, my husband and I took my daughter and my son to pay our respects to Congressman Lewis. And my son was actually interviewed by a local news station, and he shared very profoundly, why he was there. Mm-hmm. And it really moved us. It moved me to think about all the things that we had been saying, right, over those months of the pandemic at that point, and that he really had internalized the messages that we were giving him, and it had provided him some comfort. He did feel like he was doing something important by showing up and and paying his respects. And it really made me think about, how can I help kids to deal with difficulty, with challenges, help parents navigate those difficult waters with their children, and help them feel empowered through it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I like that. It really shows he was listening and taking it to heart, and it just amplifies the importance of having those important discussions at home. I mean, children, even sometimes when you think they're too young to really take it in, they are processing. And I just love that he got the opportunity out of all the people that could have been approached to give to share their thoughts. He was one. So I'm really happy about that. So, the themes that you deal with in the book, like homelessness and pandemic, inequality, they're really, really heavy topics. Like I can remember once when we were contributing to a back to school drive and we were filling backpacks. And so my sons and I were taking them over to a church near their school over in Northwest and in DC. And my son was like, why do we have to do this? Why don't kids have backpacks? He couldn't fathom that somewhere there were children, and he was young, early elementary school, but couldn't fathom that there were kids that didn't have their school supplies like he had. And so, it's really hard for them to imagine some of these things, like maybe the idea that people don't have a home or that there's inequality, that people don't get the same opportunities. That can be hard for children to imagine. So how did you approach writing about these topics in a way that could be accessible and really digestible for children without oversimplifying or diluting the gravity of the issues?
Right. Well, I really started with this idea of big words, right? Big words rushing into the home. And I do mention some of those big words, the words that you mentioned, inequality and homelessness, quarantine. But I also don't define them in too much, really, at all, because I want to give parents and caregivers, teachers, an opportunity to pause then or to talk after the book and really delve into what these words mean in a way that's age appropriate. So that's the way that I scaled the conversation, is by empowering really those adults who are reading the book with their children, with the ability to discuss those words in a way that makes sense. But I present them in a way that helps them to frame the conversation, right? They recognize, the children recognize that these are big words, that they're rushing in, that they make them feel kind of uncomfortable, that they're trying to get their mouths around the words, right? They're trying to spell them out. They're trying to understand what they mean. So it definitely sets up just that, the conversation that will happen, that should happen with caregivers. I think that that's the best way to do it in this case, because the book really can be read by toddlers or with toddlers, right? And it can also be read with students in early elementary school. And those are two different kinds of conversations. I also know that children live in the world like we all do, right? They are experiencing things, they're observing things. I wanted to help to demystify some of these issues and not make them feel shameful, because certainly children who are sitting in classrooms all across this country and indeed across the world are sitting next to kids who may be experiencing some of these very words, some of the words that are listed, some other big words as well, right? And so I don't want for kids to feel ashamed because they're experiencing homelessness, or because their family has been impacted with by some phenomena, whether it's a health related issue, or just a job loss, or whatever it might be. These are real issues, these are real things that happen, and kids do experience the repercussions of those things. So it is important for us to make space for that, and to discuss those things with them in a way that is age appropriate, and that also helps them to have hope.
And that age appropriate piece is what is really important, because I think sometimes parents shy away from talking about issues because they think they have to define it the way we talk about it in conversation, when you really don't. And plus, it's also a conversation that's going to keep on happening, because as you talked about reading the book with toddlers, say, for example, you're going to be pointing out different things and different aspects of the pictures of what they're seeing at that age. and then they can come back to the book, when they know a little bit more and all of that, and then they can really understand, like, the big words, for example, what they really mean and all of that. And so, like so many weighty topics that we discuss with our children, be it relationships, sex, how babies are born, all of that stuff. It's not this one conversation and
That's
then
right.
they understand and that's it. So that's something that I think is really the beauty about your book, and also the conversations can get started. And, like you said, start in an age appropriate way, wherever they are, meet them there to talk about, to introduce some of these issues. Now, I know that you, in your book, they have big words and challenging words and concepts that they're engaging with. Talk about why it's so important for them to learn these words, but also feel empowered to change their meanings, or change, the fear or the feelings behind it.
Carol, I learned very early in my parenting journey that my children, I don't get to choose the time that my children get introduced to some concepts. My husband and I both lost all of our parents when our children were quite young. So between the ages of 1.5 for my oldest and 7, they lost 4 grandparents. This is something that certainly we would not have wanted. That would not have been our choice, for them to lose their grandparents when they were that young, but we had to deal with the reality. Mm-hmm. And we had to talk to them about what was going on, and when they passed, what actually happened, right? Mm-hmm. And we also realized that we had to continue talking about it, because children have, just developmentally, they have different understandings of death. And so that's something that we had to come back to, and it could come up just over dinner, right? I remember grandma looked this way. She didn't smile at me. She didn't respond when I said I loved her. What was going on there? That has happened. Mm-hmm. And so we know that life can offer us some things that we wish we didn't have to address, but we do need to address them. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I learned, it was shared with me by the former, well, she's, I guess, still the first lady of a church that my husband and I attended when we lived in Brooklyn, New York. She said to me, it's important that our children see how we deal with challenges, that they see us sad if we're sad, confused if we're confused, but holding on to the things that are important to us, because that's how we transmit our values. We don't just transmit values in times of comfort, but in times of stress. Mm-hmm. And so I share that because that's something that we certainly have experienced. It's something that I've given a lot of thought to, and I want for parents to recognize that it's okay to present things that are difficult, or even to confront things that they didn't want to present, right? Because, like I said, we don't always get to choose. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to discuss these things. We don't have to act like we know everything. We don't. But we can transmit our values. We can talk to our children about what we can do in these instances when these difficult situations arise. And of course, depending upon what the difficult situation is, the response will be appropriate to that. But I really want for parents to recognize that, when we shield our children from everything, mm-hmm. and we do have to be selective, right? We all make decisions about what we're going to present and what we're not going to present. And we try to keep them from things that will just overwhelm them if we can. Mm-hmm. But we also have to be thoughtful about how are we going to address these issues. The last thing I'll say about this point right now is, when my children were young, we made a point of not watching the news while they were, around, like during dinner. We didn't watch television at that time. But then the next day they'd come back from school and they'd say, hey, this thing happened, and my friend was talking about this, and she was sad, and what is it? And so again, my husband and I really learned that even when we make a decision, right, to not present something, that different families are making different choices. They may have another degree of impact by the thing that was on the news, right? So while we might be able to choose to keep it out of our home, suppose this very thing impacted their classmate.
Right.
They can't keep it out of their home. And when your classmate is talking about something, you're going to hear it. So, as parents, we have to then be nimble and willing to discuss those things. And sometimes the answer was, well, mommy and daddy were sad when we heard about this, and we were thinking about how we wanted to discuss it with you. And we thought maybe we would discuss it today or this weekend. But it sounds like there was some conversation about it at school, so let's talk about it now. We've had many of those kinds of conversations.
Yes, I have too. And you are so right about how information and ideas kind of really bombard our families. Some of them, they aren't in alignment with our values and things like that, or we find that they're important, but we had a different timeline. But the media really forces that. I can definitely recall some moments like that. Now, given the times we are living in, I mean, we've had a global pandemic. There's heightened awareness of racial and social inequalities, global warming, all of these things. How do you think that parents and educators should use your book to navigate discussions around these topics? Now, you've talked a bit about parenting. I'm wondering about, let's start with educators.
We'll be right back after this.
If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our Social Starter Package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the Social Starter Package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure Package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPix by P411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen.
And we're back with the Parenting 411.
I think that the book creates an opportunity for educators to address some of these very topics because they're in the classrooms with students, right? They hear these conversations that are happening, some of those conversations that are happening like informally between students, and also the conversations in class, right? They're learning science and math and these topics can come up. Global warming can come up while you're studying the weather, right? So I really encourage teachers to see it as an opportunity to weave into the conversations and the classroom discussions and the lessons about these topics that they're learning about, our response. How can we impact these things? Can we impact these things? Have we heard about these things? I was talking to a principal in Prince George's County just about a week or two ago. And she was sharing with me that, they have a standing piece of their day for their second and third graders, big words. And they decide on what big word are we going to discuss today. So she was really excited about my book because she saw how it could just really complement that piece that already exists within their school, within their class structure for their second and third graders. So I think that teachers and librarians, other school administrators will decide what makes sense for the group of students that they are addressing, for the way that they structure their school day, for the issues that may be big issues that they're trying to tackle over the year, right? Because that's certainly something that schools and classrooms do. And they may also see it as an opportunity to reflect on what they see in the book and how that mirrors what they see in their school. That's another thing that I heard from a school librarian that I talked to last week. She said, one of the things that I love about this book is that everyone is represented, that I see our students in this book visually, right?
I know
and that's important. There's children of different abilities in the book who present in different ways in terms of their racial, ethnic, religious, identities. There are adults in the book as well who represent a range, and there are many languages represented in the book. Yes, the book is written in English, but if you look at the pictures, you'll see that there are words in other languages that are being written in chalk on the sidewalk, or that may be represented in some of the work that the kids are doing when, later in the book. And that's important too, because it allows young people, it allows children to see themselves and see their experience represented. And depending upon what a school is focused on or a teacher is focused on, that person can highlight those things.
And, I was wondering what role you think that hope and positivity can play in Bigger Than Me, and why it's so important for children to associate those feelings with these heavy topics and discussions.
So life is hard, but we have to have hope, right? We have to see that there are opportunities for change, that there are opportunities to make an impact. We have to stay encouraged even in the face of adversity. As adults, we know this. We know that when we're frustrated, when we're tired, when we're confused, that we have to create a path out of that. And so that's something that we have to teach our children. Our children, we talk about wanting to raise resilient children. What exactly does that mean? What does that actually look like, right? It means that our children will experience frustration, difficulty, confusion. They may be hurt. They may see someone who's hurt, but they learn what tools will help them to be able to be whole and to heal themselves if they're the ones who are hurt, or how to help others who might be hurt. That might mean that they need to show empathy. It may mean that they want to raise money for an important issue, right? It may mean that they are donating clothes to a family that had a fire in their home. It can look like a lot of different things, but this is what we are teaching. This is what we have to transmit to our children. We also have to be teach our children that it's okay to accept help when they need it. And that's an important thing too, right? So we recognize that we can always be the person who's in need at any given point. So we can give help and we can also receive help. And that's important. As adults, we know that there are so many of us who struggle with the latter, right? We know how to mobilize and marshal all of our resources in support of something that is important. But if we're the ones who need help, we may be reticent to even articulate that, right? We sort of retreat.
Right.
But that's exactly the time when we need to reach out to those who are in a place to help. So these are all the things that I think we teach this to our children. We model these things to our children. And in this book, Bigger Than Me, I hope that the kids who are reading it see the kids in the book and see that, wow, okay, this is how they are working together in community to sort of counteract the difficulty with some positivity, right? The words represent real situations in the lives of people, and we want to operate with agency, with compassion, and we see that in the book. And let's talk about how we can do that in our own lives. I'm hoping that that comes out through the book, and that those conversations are had, and that it really encourages children and adults to see a path toward helping, and to recognize that there can be positive outcomes to difficult situations.
And then I hope that comes through as well, because what I definitely see is children being resourceful and feeling empowered, even though they're children. And in a small way, they don't think they're solving all the world's problems, but there is something they can do. And that's a powerful message for young children. And then also you talked about the, just being role models, even if your children are young and you feel like they don't fully understand, but you are out here as a family helping to solve solve problems in communities. As they say, some lessons are caught and others are taught, and that's something
right.
they just see it and internalize it, and before you know it, they have helpful hearts, and they want to share their ideas, because all the lessons our children get are not going to be, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about this. So much of it is the way we live, so that's good. What were you going to say?
I will add just one other thing too. In the book, when the children get this idea to enlist their neighbors to help them, they don't quite know what they're going to do yet, but they start to collect many things that have been cast aside, things that don't seem to be serving their original purpose, but they give it a new purpose. And for those of us who really want to talk about some of the issues around environmentalism, that's a point of departure there, that we can really talk about how the things that no longer benefit us can benefit others, right? And there's no shame in that we're actually helping our world by not just discarding things that we don't need, but that we can maybe find another purpose for it, right? People talk about upcycling, that there may be a way to give that thing to someone else who may benefit from it. There are all these strains of conversation that I think can be extracted from the book for those who want to find them.
Now, we talked earlier about how a lot of issues or ideas come at us with out of our control, and then parents feel compelled, okay, now we have to deal with this. We weren't planning to, but now we have to. But how about those times when There are some challenging issues that parents are grappling with. There is something out there. The children haven't heard about it yet, but they're trying to decide. So how can they strike that balance between, protecting them from tough, troubling news or information, and starting to teach them about the realities of the world?
I think that one thing we as parents can do is go back into our own childhood and remember those times that we heard bits and pieces of conversation that confused us or maybe scared us. And then we can make a decision based on our own recollection of how that felt, what we need to do in talking to our own children. Oftentimes, parents believe that they are protecting their kids and that they are keeping something, under wraps or close to the vest, right? But the truth is that it actually is coming out in all kinds of ways. It's coming out in, a parent having a gruff tone or being very impatient with their children or maybe with each other, right? If they're partnered. It may come out in things that we now feel ashamed about, right? Well, we're not going to go to this. Well, why? Well, we're just not going to go. But the thing is, maybe we're under some financial stress and we can't buy a gift for the child, so we're not going to go to the birthday party because we can't buy a gift for the child. But all these things can be they are experienced by the children. They're not understood.
Right.
And it could make the children feel that mom or dad or caregiver, grandma, whoever it is just being mean, or it just doesn't want me to go to this party for some reason. We have to think about these things and say, is that really what I'm trying to express to the child? No, you don't necessarily have to open up your bank statement and go through it line by line with your child. Right. But you can say something, they may know that someone lost a job. They may know that, wow, we had a leak in our, in our house and we had to get it cleaned up really quickly. We can say those things, we had an unexpected expense. Right. And we can't do some of the things that we had hoped we would do, some of the things that we want to do, because we had to address this issue. And I'm sorry, I know that you're disappointed. Or maybe we can discuss it and we may come to the realization that going to the child's party isn't about bringing a gift. It's about bringing our own presence, right? Sure. The CE at the end. And that may be a lesson that's important, because it's not too often we see ourselves in transactional situations, and we can become inclined to want to show off, and we don't even realize that we're doing that, but we want to get the gift. And for the child to open it up and have a big reaction, and for other people to see it, or these kinds of things do happen in certain kinds of settings, and we don't want to be that one. Right. But the truth is that we are all dealing with the same set of issues, right? We are all dealing with high gas prices and expensive food. And, some of us may be dealing with, like I said, job loss or other kinds of issues that make those phenomena that much more difficult to deal with, right? And so we can think about these things and see an opportunity to talk to our children so that they can understand in a way that's appropriate, so that they understand that you are thinking about these issues, that you're not just being mean. And so that if it happens on their end, let's say you're throwing the party for your child, not everyone has to bring you a gift, and that doesn't mean that we aren't happy that that child showed up. That's right. We're building empathy. So all of these, I hope that kind of answers the question, but I just think that these are all little lessons
Mm-hmm.
that life will show us if we choose to take them.
Mm-hmm. And following along with that, because you gave some excellent examples of how showing empathy and also ways to talk about a situation to be honest, so that they are not getting mixed signals from your behavior. So let's talk then about how parents can instill values of cooperation and solidarity in their children, because your book does, you mentioned earlier about the community, bringing people in from the community, but how can you start teaching that to children, especially from an early age?
I think it really requires a lot of intentionality on the part of parents.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are we can do most things quicker and better than our kids can, with the exception of maybe, doing things on our phone, right? Our kids might win out over us on that. But
Right.
in general, we can think about it while we're driving. We can, get it done quickly when they're asleep. But that's not really doing it that way all the time doesn't create an opportunity for our children to put into action some of the things that we want them to know.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very intentional about seeing an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for children to problem solve
Mm-hmm.
and to think about who they can enlist.
Mm-hmm.
And there, because when they do that, then they feel more invested in the outcome, and
Mm-hmm.
they are willing to persevere and work together.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. I have two children. They are 2 years apart in age. They
Mm-hmm.
are not unlike many children in that they will have their squabbles and have had their squabbles. But when I have seen them really work together, it's because they felt invested in the outcome, and they realized that they needed each other to execute on whatever their shared vision was. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I was able to step back and allow that to happen, that's when I really saw them work in community. And I
Mm-hmm.
also, have seen them employ those same strategies even as they grow older
Mm-hmm.
with group projects and things like that, because they realize, oh, okay, wait, I have to work with this person. We have a shared goal.
Mm-hmm.
And they have thankfully have had some practice in that, right? So we have to create those opportunities for those parents whose children may not have siblings, right? They
Mm-hmm.
have to create these opportunities in other ways, with friends or cousins, with classmates,
Mm-hmm.
um, with neighbors. But certainly it does take, if we're doing it in these other spaces, it does take some sort of shared understanding and desire for that. You as the adult talking to the other adult, that
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're trying to do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it always comes naturally. And I also do, and I'm saying this to myself, my younger parenting self especially, as much as I'm saying it to anyone else, sometimes the conflicts are instructive as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as a parent, it can be challenging, it can be stressful to hear our children squabbling with one another, but they may be working towards something, and they
Right.
may be learning something through that process. And our impulse could be, I just don't want to hear that, right? Like, just this just needs to stop, right?
Right.
Um, and so I'm just going to squash it. But I did learn that that's not always helpful to
Right.
them, to their learning.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my good friends from college, who is just a few years ahead of me in her parenting journey, she really talked to me about that sometimes you just have to listen, but not listen, right? You're listening just to make sure that things haven't gotten out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
um, but you can studiously ignore it
Right.
and allow them to work it out, because that's how they learn to that there's something larger, that there's a larger goal that they're trying to work toward, and they're going to deal with their conflict so they can move on.
I can definitely agree with that one.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's parentandpurposesummit2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
Now, tell us, what have you heard from parents and children about Bigger Than Me, and how has the book been received and the impact that it's having?
Well, it's really been having a wonderful reception. The book came out fairly recently, so I'm still amidst meeting with kids and parents in a few different settings and libraries and schools in addition to bookstores. But my very first reading, I was so moved because there was a family, 3 generations.
Oh, wow.
The little girl was 5, her mother, I guess maybe in her 30s or so, and the mother's mother, who is probably in her 60s. They were all there. I was like, wow, I was tickled to see them. But the little girl, she is a new reader, and she was happy to read some of the words along with me, which was really delightful and showed that she was engaged. And she talked to me before the reading even began to talk about the picture on the book. I'm just going to show it once again.
Sure.
There are all these blocks with letters that actually make words. And she asked me, well, what's going on there? And what do you think that means? And I asked her, what does she think that means? Because she asked me. And I said, well, what do you think? Right. And she said, well, maybe it's something that they're struggling with, or they're trying to figure it out. And I said, I think you're right. So she was already putting some things together with the title of the book and what she saw. Her mother was happy to see the range of words that were in the book because of the work that she does working with immigrant populations. Okay. And the grandmother talked to me. She had tears in her eyes. And she said, this is just so important. And there are so few books that see the people who might be experiencing some of these things. And I'm just so grateful that you have seen fit to create a book where you've opened up some space. And she just was really teary-eyed. I was getting teary-eyed. I don't know everything that was on her mind, but she did share, that she works with a range of populations as well. And, I just, that's so heartening as a writer. When you write a book, whatever kind of book you write, whether it's for children or adults, you have something in mind. The book manifests in ways that you maybe envisioned, and also in ways that maybe you didn't. And then you release it, right? You release it out into the world, and you hope that it's going to do the work it's meant to do. But in that thought, you also realize that you, as the author, don't know all the work that it's meant to do. Right. But when you have an experience such as the one that I was blessed to have, where I see 3 generations having 3 different experiences with this book,
Mm-hmm.
it tells me, yes, it it's doing the work, and it's going to continue to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It will, that work will look different for different populations. People will get out of it what they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully over time, the children in particular, as they grow and they revisit the books on their bookshelves, that they will, continue to glean the important things that they're supposed to glean at that time, right? What I get at 3 and what I get at 7 may be 2 different things, and that's good.
Right.
So I really have gotten a very good feedback, very good responses already.
Good.
Um, and I'm just grateful for that. And I feel humbled as an author that I'm an instrument for this in people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, when I think about, your background in anthropology and social justice and how I'm sure that helps you to see issues going on and really help frame, this book. I mean, your thoughts with this book combined with your experience as a parent. Do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives along this line that really kind of, bridge the gap between children's literature and social justice that we could look forward to?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am talking to other authors and other people in this world of creatives who are really trying to bring things to families, to see how I can enter those spaces and do some of this additional work, right? Because I'm not the only one who's doing the work. I spoke to an author. Her name is Mahogany Brown.
Mm-hmm.
She is actually I want to say the poet laureate for the Kennedy Center.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And she's doing work with children's books. She has a children's book, and it's really trying to raise the profile of social justice.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there are books that are not being well received
Right.
because they have a social justice message, but we recognize that we all live in this world together, and it's important for us to have the things that we talked about, right? Empathy and compassion and understanding and knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy that I have that the launch of my book has created an opportunity for me to connect with her, right? Connecting with other people and other entities that are highlighting children's literature. So there's certainly that aspect of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I continue to explore how I can impact children's lives. I continue to write. I have another children's book that I'm working on now. And
Wonderful.
I'm really excited about this, the ability that I've been given to offer this gift
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, anyone who will receive it through writing about issues that are challenging in ways that are well received by family. So I'm really excited about some of these things. I know that feels a little bit vague, but
Oh, that's
there's
okay.
things in development that I'm working on. Really excited about those, really excited about partnerships with others who are doing this work, because it, like I say in the book, we have to do it together, right?
Right.
It's not a single person who is um, on this mission,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned my background in anthropology. When I was studying anthropology, on the undergraduate and graduate level, I learned so much about different people and
Mm-hmm.
culture and how people operate
Mm-hmm.
with intentions that are clear to them and intentions that may not be clear to them. I'm always thinking about those kinds of things when I
Mm-hmm.
write, right? That we operate within frameworks of what's expected. Um, we may make decisions to operate outside of those frameworks. We may be looking to change some of those frameworks. And so as a student of culture,
Mm-hmm.
and of popular culture, that's one I always call myself a student of popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look at some of those very things, some of the frameworks that we are operating within, and how it may impact what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and how we need to perhaps change that. I talked about that earlier in our discussion, right? That there can be so much shame around certain kinds of experiences, but yet and still those experiences are real for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need to change how we think about some of these issues.
Right.
And some of us will experience those issues ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of us is healthy always.
Mm-hmm.
We may not always have all the things that we need, and we
Right.
may not have many of the things that we want.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we deal with that in a way that shows self-compassion or
Mm-hmm.
compassion for others if they're experiencing those things? So that's part of what I'm trying to always address. I'm always trying to just little pick up on what um, is happening in the prevailing culture, and I'm trying to interrogate it a little bit and maybe present an alternative, or hopefully, I think, a better, more holistic and more empathetic way of
Mm-hmm.
addressing those issues.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, it's good to know, good to hear that you are already are working on another book, but also that you're collaborating with others. So there's a lot of exciting things that we probably can expect from you, and that's great. Show us again the book and tell us how we can grab a copy of that book.
So again, this is Bigger Than Me, and I should mention that the illustrator Kara Bodegon Hikino lives in the Philippines and is from the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really heartening and exciting to see how her artwork brought my words to life. So I did want to mention that.
Wonderful.
The book is available everywhere that books are sold. It's certainly on those big platforms like Amazon and Barnes Noble. It's on bookshop.com, which is sort of the online component for many independent booksellers all throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's available at independent bookstores and larger chain bookstores as well. I have had the pleasure of visiting many of those bookstores in the DC area, which, of course, I'm here in Washington, DC, and
Mm-hmm.
I've signed some of those books. So that's always exciting. And I've been doing readings and things like that. But the book is available
Mm-hmm.
wherever books are sold. And if it's not at your local bookstore, you can always ask for it. And in fact, as an author, we love that, right? Because it tells the bookseller that there is the desire to have that book. So
Mm-hmm.
that's very helpful to us. So if you don't see it there, please don't just walk out the door. You can ask
Right.
ask them if
Mm-hmm.
they will order it for you, or when
Mm-hmm.
they will get it in, and it may put the book on their radar screen.
Yeah, that's what you definitely want. And bookstores, they want to have what people want. So it's
Absolutely,
information.
they
It's
do.
very valuable information for them as well. And so how can we follow your work, whether it's on a website or social media?
I am most active on Instagram under Erica.turnipseed. So Instagram didn't create an opportunity for me to get my middle name in there, but Erica.turnipseed is where I am there. I
Mm-hmm.
also have a website, Erica on the Journey, where that has some of my other writing, and I'm further developing my ericasimone.turnipseed.com website. So I think that if you connect with me on Instagram, then you will absolutely learn about everything else, because everything sort of flows out of Instagram, and I make sure that I publicize certain things on Instagram.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for joining me today, Erica. I think this was a very uh, rich and impactful discussion. I think it will start conversations in homes around the country and maybe around the world. And as always, I am so grateful for our listeners who tune in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe this episode, and subscribe to the Parenting 411 podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Also, if you'd like to see the interview, the visual interview, head on over to YouTube. Of course, it's the Parenting 411 channel on YouTube. That will be available once we announce the release of this episode. I also want to share that the parenting411.com is now up. So I know a lot of people contact me through carolmaletta.com, and that still exists, but we also have the Parenting 411 that talks a lot about what I'm doing and how you can connect with me, whether it's for coaching, speaking, or just other content to help you on your parenting journey. And so I just look forward to connecting with you there, theparenting411.com. And as always, remember that it is never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thank you again.